you know that we keep hearing that we punch above our weight here in BC in the clean tech sector. Until now, there hadn't been any real definitive numbers to prove that. The latest KPMG report, though, states that we have 273 clean tech companies, representing 30% of the Canadian total. So yeah, I think that's punching above our weight. That makes it extremely difficult to pick out a few companies to highlight here today. There are many clean tech companies in BC, and they all have tremendous potential. But we have 4 companies here today that certainly represent a great cross-section of the BC clean tech ecosystem, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy their stories. So this is not a panel discussion. I'm really not moderating. It's an opportunity for each of these companies to tell you what they're doing, how they're doing it, and provide some insight into how they're going to affect the environment and the economy in the future. There was going to be 5, but unfortunately, Janice Cheam from Nurio had to step away for customer meetings. It's unfortunate because Nurio has a great story, but I think we always preach to these companies that the customer comes first. My introductions are going to be really brief because we only have about 5 or 6 minutes per company, so I don't want to waste too much time. But so to start off, I'd like to introduce Adrian Corless, CEO of Carbon Engineering, whose technology captures CO2 directly from the atmosphere and will ultimately enable production of ultra-low carbon fuels from this captured CO2. Adrian?
Thanks, Neil. Appreciate that. Yeah, as Neil said, I'm Adrian Corless. I'm the CEO of Carbon Engineering. We're very proud to be a BC clean tech company up in Squamish, British Columbia. So come visit at any time. I think, first of all, George, I just want to reiterate, you're right, clean tech is really hard. And so it's hard in part because we're generally trying to tackle really big, difficult problems. And because they're really big and difficult, it also implies it takes a long time, it takes a lot of money. Generally, scale is difficult, so ultimately a lot of capital. So these things are all big challenges. And for a clean tech company to be successful, we need a sustained investment support from both private sector and public sector. And ultimately, we also need to develop social license as well. So the ability to deploy these big solutions ultimately, requires that these solutions are accepted as being better than the problems you're trying to solve. So the problem, again, that really is driving our purpose is carbon. So carbon is a really big problem with over 400 parts per million in the atmosphere today and another 40 billion tons being added every year and still growing. We have this huge problem to first bend the curve so we can someday, in the very near future, get to peak carbon. And then we've got this really difficult problem to bend that curve all the way down to zero. So getting those 40 billion tons out, and that's probably not enough. We probably actually have to go negative as well to really start thinking about remediating the damage that's been caused because it's going to take us so long. That's a really, really big problem. So for us, Carbon Engineering, we've set out as a mission to develop technology specific around taking CO2 back out of the atmosphere. So we have been around for around 8 years and developed some core technology that allows us to think about doing CO2 capture at megaton scale. And so megaton is big, but we're still talking about problems that are billions of tons. So we've developed that technology. We're also developing some complementary technology around taking that captured CO2 and in conjunction with hydrogen produced from renewables, so basically air, water, and electricity, we're able to then synthesize liquid hydrocarbons like diesel and gasoline. And so the back end of that sounds like a little bit of magic, but in fact it's probably the low risk part. It's the part that has the most technical precedence in terms of the synthesis side. So to talk a little bit about that combined sort of what we call air to fuels package, the challenge always, again, is, obviously there's the technology barriers, but there's also ultimately the cost of deploying this in a competitive world. And so we're going up against fossil fuels, and that's difficult. But a couple things, and so Deb, your goal to get to 3 cents wind and the fact that we're on the cusp of 2 cents solar, and so the combination of those two means that we're not that far off from being able to have the energy inputs necessary to couple with atmospheric CO2 to make recycled hydrocarbons that are going to be competitive with fossil. So if we go back to this idea of getting to zero net carbon, we are actually talking about, in the latter part of this century, no more fossil fuels. And so we're not going to give up air travel. We're not going to give up being mobile around the world. We need those things. We need to actually build the wealth of other 80% of the world's population. So this is a way to do it. This is a combination of renewables getting really cheap, recycled carbon. So that's the big idea. That's what carbon engineering is working on. So today we're piloting the technology up in Squamish. By 2020, with our partners, our goal is to deploy the first commercial air-to-fuels plant producing commercial quantities of synthetic fuels here in BC. So to circle back to the support, I just want to finish, I think, by calling out the fact that we're successful and we're here in BC because of the support that we've received from both the provincial government here in BC and also the federal government. And so that sustained support, along with the support of our committed investors, and we have kind of a unique investor group, Bill Gates, Murray Edwards, and others that have taken this mission on in a little bit different way than some of the, the venture firms in BC would normally look at investing. It's allowing us to have a chance of being successful in our mission. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks so much, Adrian. I don't think it's any secret that clean tech is really, really hard. You're not only developing technology and trying to be cost competitive and take it to markets, and then having the financial support and the talent support around you to make that happen. It's really, really difficult. Now I'd like to introduce Ben Sparrow. Ben is CEO of Saltworks. They manufacture and deliver desalination and wastewater treatment plants that treat the world's most complex wastewaters and brines. Ben?
Good afternoon, everybody. There are no slides. I see actually the gentleman in the audience who was one of our first institutional investors, John Thompson. He used to be Vice President of Tech Resources. There's a number of other people in this audience who helped get us on our feet in the early days. IRAP, SCDC. And with their support, recently we actually also secured some wind funding. But I'll back up. What does Saltworks do? Saltworks is an industrial desalination company. We focus on treating the waters that are either too expensive to treat or there is not a known accepted solution. There's only 2 companies in the world that do what we do, that manufacture both a proprietary membrane product. Membranes are like sports cars for water treatment. They can go really fast, they can do wonderful things, but if you drive them over too many speed bumps, they get grumpy. So we manufacture, we innovative membranes that can split out the periodic table of elements and do some fancy stuff. The other area to treat water, at least in desalination, is to boil it, evaporate it, and condense it. And again, these 2 companies in the world that do membranes and evaporators were General Electric, which is now Suez, and Saltworks. So we're really proud of this broad technology platform. Now, the economics of water treatment are getting very, very interesting. If you're in the United States of America, and if you believe that shale oil production is going to increase, shale oil is a water play. Last year, 7.2 billion barrels of water were disposed in the United States of America, $14 to $20 billion spent. Most of it putting water in trucks, driving it to a hole and pumping it underground. Canada's oil sands, similarly, in some facilities. So you can spend about $100 a cubic meter doing that, or you can treat it on site for $25. That's the differential that we play. That's where we make our profit. On our membrane side, we're really interested in the periodic table of the elements, splitting up the periodic table of the elements using selective membrane chemistry. Imagine a brine pipeline from a water treatment plant, and what's coming out of that, traditionally seen as a waste product. Well, you can turn it into glass, you can turn it into concrete. This is huge in China. EOR, enhanced oil recovery. If you believe the super major oil companies, 40-odd% of their oil production moving forward is going to come from pushing the right salinity of water underground, often offshore, to try and extract more oil from a reservoir. So you spent $2 billion on an oil platform. If you can get 30-40% more oil out from under that oil platform, that's a significant return, but you have to send the right cocktail down. Problem is, what comes up is a more salty cocktail. We developed technology that desalts that salty cocktail, enables them to recycle 100% of the water. So that's what we do. Now, Neil also asked us to talk a little bit about what we did right and what we did wrong. I'd be up here all day if I talked about everything I did wrong, so the top 3. What we did right, we raised money from our customers. Our customers are our shareholders, British Petroleum, ConocoPhillips, Tech Resources, Cenovus. Align motivation, develop robust, reliable technology the industry is going to need to maintain their license to operate beyond 2020, 2025. So our customers, they're not focused on a quick flip, they're not focused on a pump and dump. They want robustness. What we did wrong, we focused too much on one customer. Went down the rabbit hole, wasted too much time. We learned from that. What we did right, we created platform technologies. We created a membrane product. We created a package for the membrane product which has multiple applications that I could go on and on about. That's been really valuable to us. What we did wrong, we got distracted by shiny objects. Too many different applications. Spent way too much time dealing with one person who wanted to create fertilizer from seawater. Lost our focus. Another thing that we did right, promoting talent from within. Hiring young, smart people, motivating them, giving them the opportunity to succeed and fail, and promoting them. What we did wrong, hired externally. I've hired 2 external vice presidents, I fired them both. We have excellent talents in British Columbia. We have a wonderful province here, lots of young people, very, very eager. With the right coaching and the right mentoring, they can do tremendous things. Look forward to further discussion and your feedback. Thank you very much. BCTECH, it's a wonderful province. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Ben. You know, it's amazing to hear that you're promoting talent from within. That's more companies need to do that. We have a lot of talent here in BC, and there's nothing better from an investment point of view than a customer dollar. So that's wonderful. So now I'd like to introduce Jeff Moore. Jeff is president and CEO of Minesense, whose technology enhances the sustainability of mining by improving the ore extraction and recovery process. Jeff?
Well, thank you, Neil, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about our company, Minesense Technologies. Although after the last presentation, I must admit I'm slightly nervous, because I must admit I was an external hire. So hopefully it will all work out. So what is Minesense? No. At Minesense, we believe we're at quite an interesting intersection of 3 critical sectors. So first of all, we're absolutely a technology company focused on mining. And of course, mining is a critical resource industry that supplies materials that the world desperately needs on a regular basis, and is also an absolutely key part of the Canadian economy. Secondly, we are very much a big data IoT company, and apparently my thumb does not work very well. Now we're going backwards. Okay, we're absolutely a big data IoT company. We supply a complete hardware and software system, but the value in what we produce comes out of the information that we create, information that's never been available before to the mining industry. And then thirdly, we are also a clean tech company, which is, of course, why we're here this afternoon. The implementation of Minesense technology will have significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, as well as overall energy and water consumption. So where we sit is at the intersection of those 3 things. So the next question is, what does Minesense actually do? The Minesense technology, as I mentioned, is a hardware-software solution. And to explain what it is that we do, I have to explain a little bit about what mining currently done and has had to do for the last several decades. When you're working in a mine, the only technology you have available today is something called creating core samples or getting core samples, and then you send them off to a lab. There's 2 problems with that process. One is that the samples you're taking represent about 0.001% of the actual material that you're handling, so it's highly non-representative. The second problem is the lab takes 3 to 5 days to actually get your information back, so you're almost always working with backwards information. If you asked any other, I came to the manufacturing sector primarily, and if you asked anybody who worked in that sector, say somebody running a GE turbine plant, that I want you to produce world-class products, but guess what? You're actually not going to have any real idea of your raw materials as it's coming in the front of your process. They probably tell you you're crazy and or go screaming out of the room. That's what mining deals with on a regular basis. What our systems do is provide them the smart ability to know exactly what's in their ore in real time as it's being handled. Our hardware, we develop proprietary sensors that actually can be put onto the mobile equipment, the big shovels that you see in mines, as well on conveyance. They're easily retrofittable onto the material. We develop big data software that takes all this raw data off and then can transform it in real time as the operation is happening into information, telling precisely what's in the rock. And then we've also a proprietary machine learning level of algorithms that makes all this work and is specific on a ore type or mine type basis. We've had a very happy in terms of what we were able to do in 2016. I had the ability to, or the opportunity, I should say, to present here last year. In 2016, we've had three major significant results. The first one is we're able to demonstrate, and this is probably the biggest one, that the technology actually works. We've done three very successful trials at mines all here in BC with very, very good results that indicate that technology works and also our value and our business model works as well. Secondly, we spent a good part of last year doing a fundraise. I'm happy to announce, as we did about a month ago, that we were able to close a round of $19 million. And we did that at a significant increase to our valuation as well. We're very happy to have this funding. It takes us nicely into entering into our full commercialization, which we're now entering in 2017. And then lastly, we also signed our first ever commercial contract. We're very happy to be working with a customer that's is fantastic to work with. And the commercial contract is worth about $11 million to us in its first full year. So that puts us firmly on our business model in terms of proving out our pricing model and the value we can extract from it, but also in terms of putting us towards our 5-year plan of reaching $100 million revenue by 2021. The last thing that I wanted to leave you with is the size of the market that we believe that we have. From our numbers, and we're phasing in our commercialization. In our first phase, the segments that we're focused on, which is 4 segments, we believe the market is about $6 billion. Of that $6 billion, we're currently working with companies and have projects at various stages from initial through to mine trials, which is the end of our process. And those companies represent just under $1 billion of potential revenue. And the way that our business model works, it's all recurring revenue. So we're excited and we're looking forward to continuing the progress of Minesense. Thank you very much for the time.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff, and congratulations on the $19 million financing. And it's also great to see that the valuation's going in the right direction and that you've turned that into an initial $11 million contract. That's great. So big data and bringing big data to the resource sector, you're going to see more and more of that. It's really nice to see that they use this real-time data to improve their efficiency and reduce their costs. So last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Andrew Morden, President and CEO of Corvus Energy, who provides purpose-engineered energy storage solutions for marine, oil and gas, and port applications.
Thank you, Neil, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'll be brief. I think that's what we're supposed to do up here. So at Corvus, what we do, as Neil rightly pointed out, is we make lithium-ion battery solutions, platforms, largely for the marine and offshore industry. So we don't manufacture lithium-ion cells. What we do is make the best lithium-ion cells usable, reliable, safe, most importantly safe right now, and scalable. So it's been an interesting ride for Corvus, and talking about sort of how we got here and where we are now, I think about it in 2 chapters. The first chapter was a pretty fun chapter for the company. Oil prices were $100. There was new environmental regulation that was driving our customer base to make changes. There's really a robust subsidy environment in Northern Europe, in particular Scandinavia. So rapid growth, rapid adoption, lots of early adopters. It seemed pretty easy, and a lot of tolerance for new technology, which was fantastic. Really allowed us to get a foothold in the marketplace. A lot of firsts. Second chapter had some challenges, and that's the chapter we're in now, and that's, of course, oil at $50, which means fuel prices much lower. So our value proposition not nearly as clear as it once was. A lot more competition, no doubt, and really a global slowdown in the marine industry. So it was time for change, and this change, those challenges also came with a big opportunity, which is, and maybe we'll give Elon Musk the credit, I don't know if he deserves it all, but is really some rapid change in what's going on with lithium-ion cell technology. So much, much more cost-effective, changing rapidly, and performance much, much better. So really an environment of rapid change and improvement in value. And that gave us the vision, the idea, the inspiration for our second generation of the product, which is, we call it Orca. And really bringing some software ideas, if you will, to what's thought of as a hardware business or an equipment business. So really a platform-based approach. So what we've brought to market at actually literally half the cost of our initial products is a platform where we can bring multiple batteries to play to really meet our customers' very specific needs. And that's what we're finding out is our customers really have specific needs, and the lithium-ion cell technology that's being adopted, or is being, brought to market, is trying to meet all those needs. So our challenge, our opportunity, is to wrap up that new technology and make it usable and safe in industrial, large-scale, difficult mobile environments. And really, that's what we've done. So, you know, we've done about 55 projects, over 1 million operating hours now, and really established ourselves as sort of more than just a first arriver, really as someone who's establishing an entire industry. So, and getting our cost down, our value up, is expanding the whole industry opportunity, not just for us, but for all the players in the industry. So, just to wrap up a little bit in terms of the impact, and as part of, I think it's what gets me up in the morning, and a lot of the folks that work at Corvus. So for us, and you don't think of the marine industry as in these terms, but by the time, if we keep doing what we are doing, and our competitors as well, we'll take about, we'll reduce fuel consumption by about 1.5 megatons over the next 5 years. Excuse me, which is about 6 megatons of carbon. That equates to about converting 2 million vehicles to EVs. Right now on the road, there's about 1.5 million EVs. So it really gives you a state that, you know, we don't see a lot about the marine industry and what electrification can do in terms of the impact on the environment, but it is material. It is comparable, close to what EVs are doing. So it's an exciting time and it makes a big impact. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Andrew. And it's great to hear that a successful pivot, changing your value proposition, turning it into a real opportunity. That's the majority of clean tech companies have to go through that kind of a process. So can I get one final round of applause for all the companies?